Well, we are not sure if we're currently live or not. We should be.
Yeah.
Let's see here. We're currently live or not. Okay. Good deal. Well, so, anyways, I mean, you were just talking about what, $5 in MCF?
$5.50. Yeah,
$5.50.
it's pretty good.
I mean, I still don't know that that's ever going to change anything with drilling gas wells.
I mean, it seems like I think it's up today because I saw some headline about Europe agreeing to buy more American LNG.
Right. That's been the headline for like 2 or 3 days now. I saw that start popping up, and I mean, like we've talked about in the previous weeks, I don't think that America produces enough LNG to supply Europe. I don't think that we're capable of
No,
producing
100%.
enough, and I don't think that our infrastructure for exporting that is of sufficient size to ever actually like make a big contribution.
Right, but companies like Cheniere and some of those other ones are going to go maybe commit to building more terminals now.
Yeah, but at the same time, that's going to take 5 years.
Yeah, like we're just now
10
seeing.
years, right?
We're just now seeing the turn on of all those terminals that got started in.
And I still need to look up that
14.
one on the Pacific coast of Mexico that my neighbor was telling me about, because that's something I had not really heard about at all. But interesting.
I mean, I know I'm not the only one, but stuff sure looks really bullish still from a purely supply demand.
Well, I mean, you've repurposed your entire retirement fund into into fossil fuels now. You're heavily bullish on fossil fuels.
Very, very long oil and gas, which I think is going to pay off. Like, the market, the stock market looks weird. So why not be at least invested in companies that are going to spin off a bunch of cash right now?
Yeah, I mean, but that's assuming that they don't get some kind of like government mandated, insane drill production quota that they have to meet. Which is, it's crazy that nobody really understands how any of this works.
Right. I mean, it was interesting that the Dallas Fed survey came out and said that, some of the comments in there were executives trying to say, look, we can't get pipe, we can't get people. We are frac sand. We are constrained by supply chain issues. Even wanted to ramp up. And so it's stuff like that I think commodities, oil and gas, a commodity sector that we're familiar with is the place to be right now, at least for a couple of years.
Well, and it's also one of those situations where it's the only sector that's been consistently green for the past 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah.
Everything else has gone up and down, and energy is the only thing that's kind of stayed stable. But I mean, I'm kind of curious, what has there been any change in like the renewable companies in any of their stock? Because they're starting to be part of the narrative again as well.
Yeah, I couldn't even tell you what a single publicly traded renewables company is.
I mean, NextEra, and that's about it. But that's not really just renewables.
They're more of a utility stock, right?
Yeah, I mean, they kind of market themselves as a renewables, like green energy company. But yeah, I mean, owning Florida Power and Light is their, mainstay. They're never going to go out of business because of that. You don't have any alternative.
Right.
And I mean, they've got nuclear and, oil and gas and all kinds of other shit as part of that package. But, I think that the company that most people in oil and gas would know would be like, Solyndra. and stuff like that, where you don't know them for being a good company.
Right. And I feel like whoever owns all of the like turbines out in West Texas and stuff like I feel like that's a private company.
I've driven by all these wind farms, and there's a solar farm just south of 1604, outside of, or maybe it's just south of 410, at 37, on the west side of 37.
Like you're going to I-10, because I've seen that one.
No, it's south of I-10.
Oh well, there's one like if you're taking 1604 around to get to I-10.
And this is like, I mean, this solar farm is like right next to like the Weatherford headquarters and everything. And I noticed it the other day. I just looked over and was like, what the hell is over in that field? And as far as you can see, solar panels. Which is interesting because, normally I'm extremely curious about energy infrastructure and, whose rig is that and all that stuff. And I've never once looked up who the fuck owns all these wind turbines and solar farms that are everywhere.
Yeah.
And where's that power actually going? Because a bunch of the stuff that we do down south, there are giant electrical transmission lines crisscrossing all over South Texas. Where the hell is it going to and from?
Right.
I know that there's a lot of, like infrastructure around like Three Rivers and stuff like that. And then there's, power plants, Calaveras power plant, Choke Canyon, places like that. I get all of that, but at the same time, if you're plugging, a huge amount of new power from renewables into the grid in the middle of nowhere, do you think that the existing infrastructure is sufficient for that? Because those transmission lines were set up for coal and natural gas plants to keep them out of, populated areas.
Well, I think that's an argument reasonable people make a lot, is that just American power transmission infrastructure is really bad too.
Yeah.
Underinvested.
Well, I mean, a couple of months back, there was that report that some people had tried to hang a whole bunch of like wires and stuff from a drone and fly it into a substation.
I hadn't seen that one.
As like a terrorist attack. And so, that was like the government talking about how people were using, consumer level drones for domestic terrorism and stuff like that. It's only a matter of time before they come after my drones, man.
I know. Well, EMP, somebody's North Koreans may set off an EMP over the U.S. and just wreck the whole grid system.
Yeah. I think Max Gagliardi might join on today. Normally he is too busy shuffling kids around and
all his ventures that he's doing.
All that good stuff, yep. But we'll see. Once somebody else joins, I'm wondering if we're going to be able to hear them.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because there's something wrong with the settings here.
We heard Alberta, and then it went away.
Yeah, that worked totally fine. I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting deal because, I mean, shit, we've been working in the energy industry for our entire professional lives and are just now starting to pay attention to where that power comes from.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like last year that the freeze,
right,
snowpocalypse or whatever, snowvid, whatever you want to call it, really woke a lot of people up to not knowing where their power comes from and who to be mad at when their power goes out. Right. So
reality. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see all the Q1 calls. I guess here in a couple of months, just because A lot of cash being made right now, which means Bernie and Elizabeth Warren are going to keep talking windfalls profit tax.
Yeah, but like if they actually do that, all it's going to do is just push us further into recession,
Right.
which may be inevitable. So at this point, does it really matter? Maybe not. I mean, you're certainly not going to be incentivizing reinvestment and increasing production.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they'll try and ride it out till November or whatever, when hopefully the House and Senate change hands. Fire Nancy Pelosi, fire Chuck Schumer.
I mean, wouldn't that be amazing? But I don't have any faith that that's actually going to happen.
Well, I mean, they'll still keep their jobs as Congress people.
I mean, turning over the Senate, sure, that could possibly happen, but turning over the House is a whole different story.
Well, but I think the Republicans are only down like 5 seats or something, and there's a bunch of.
I thought it was way more than that.
No, it's pretty tight.
I thought it was like 30 something.
And there's a lot of vulnerable districts with the way the country is going at the moment. But lost my train of thought looking at myself on YouTube. Not hearing anything.
Yeah, I can't hear anything. So I'm wondering if we're.
Let's try.
I mean, you could hear it when you logged in on your phone.
Did you hit mute on the TV?
I don't think that's a thing.
I mean, like audio output, like you mute the TV speakers or something.
No, I don't think that's a thing.
Oh,
Oh shit!
That's a good sign.
You got Max coming on.
We heard a blip.
Yeah. Here we go. What's going on? How you been?
Pretty good, man. It's been a while. How you been?
Busier than we want to be.
Yeah. That's good, though.
Yeah, I mean,
cheers to Friday.
Cheers, man. We made it.
I know.
What are you up to these days?
I've been busy, running around. We've been doing we've got just our normal oil and gas stuff going on. The energy side's been busy. It's been good. People are getting active again, guys picking up rigs, so that's exciting. We didn't get a lot of that the last couple of years. So that's been a positive. A lot of some due diligence stuff, people trying to buy things, although I think like the choppiness right now may make that a bit of a challenge. But, seeing a little bit of due diligence, and then gas prices being higher has been huge. I mean, it's great for us because we market gas. So, part of our fees are sometimes like exposed to the commodity. So, been through a lot of years the last decade where we're just like wallowing in like $2 or below gas prices. So I can't complain. And then busy on the Bitcoin stuff too. We've been making data centers, building a couple and putting those out to work. And the Wildcatter guys got me coming to their thing next week. So I'm gonna be running around doing that. So been keeping busy.
Nice. Well, I mean, have you seen an increase in investment from you do a lot of the midstream stuff, right?
Yep. Yes, sir.
And I mean, is that really starting to pick up again? Because the lead time for those projects, you're looking a couple of years out, and we keep saying that everybody seems to be overly cautious with their optimism right now, and afraid to allocate capital to longer term returns.
Midstream's been tough for a while now. I mean, for years now. I think that midstream, without like really consistent line of sight to development, it's tough. And then even where you do have that, you've seen guys in like even really active areas like the Permian really start to pull back and shy away from spending capital, trying to push it to the producers and say, no, you need to build to me, you need to lay a line to me, you need to set the compression. Treating has been an issue. We've had some guys that are, nope, sorry, I don't know if I switched off there, but had some guys that we know that are having to basically look at potentially building out their own treating. So it's like midstreams are there, they have the capacity a lot of times, but they're just not wanting to spend money And so it's getting, that's where kind of our company comes in, and we're like trying to figure out the best possible deal we can get for the producer, without them having to come out of pocket and go completely risk on. And then outside of that, I mean, there's just not a lot of new greenfield midstream happening. I mean, it's happening in some areas. There's water stuff going on. There's, little things here and there, but I don't think the midstream is fully ramped up at all compared to where it's been years ago. So that's just some anecdotal stuff we're seeing.
And I mean, ever since the beginning of the shale revolution, midstream has been underinvested. The infrastructure has not been built out that really we need to produce at maximum capacity. I think it's fine for where we are right now. But I think that if you're trying to become, more energy independent again in the future, we're going to be running into these bottlenecks that have been around for decades. And
Right.
I just don't see, we were talking to the intern and I were talking about at the start of the show how the news story the last couple of days is that the United States is going to start shipping more LNG to Europe. Well, that's great. We're kind of starved at the capacity to export and produce and move around LNG. And we're going to need, a drastic overhaul of the regulatory process because it takes, half a decade to get approval on building a new terminal.
Right. Not just building the new terminals, but getting the pipelines needed to get there. I mean, the Permian is going to need another pipe at some point. And these things aren't quick. I can't remember the amount of days. Which guest was there? I had somebody on that knew the exact amount of days. I think it was Michael Kuismano with Pickering Energy Partners. He's their midstream guy, and he was telling me, like, from start to finish, the amount of days it takes to get a new long-haul pipeline, the last one built out of the Permian, and it's a lot. I mean, it's years worth of time. So, one needs to get built. Nobody, and that's, playing to what you're talking about, accessing the LNG ports, accessing this gas, also out of the Northeast. Like, we need new long-haul pipelines. These take years to get done. And out of the Northeast, there's a big question mark whether they'll even allow it at this point. I mean, they've weaponized the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, right? So the FERC has got all these appointees in there now that they've now just recently put this thing in there that they're going to evaluate every project, and they're going to put climate change as a deciding factor on whether they'll approve it or not. So that's just code word for we're basically able to blackball anything we want. Essentially, is what that means.
I mean,
so
they already were
whether we can get it.
They already were doing that, and now they've made it official policy to do that. So, yeah, right. they took what they already had in terms of leeway with dragging out proceedings and stuff, and they made it an official part of the process. So again, I just don't see people wanting to allocate the tens, hundreds of millions of dollars to projects that might not ever actually be able to get built.
Right. Yeah, it's a huge issue. And it's like there's this like case that we're going to just see perpetual natural gas growth out of the U.S. And it's not a matter of whether the resource is there. We know the resource is there. It's a matter of whether we're going to be able to facilitate the infrastructure to get that resource out of the ground and get it to a market that's profitable long term. And so to build these pipelines and then to build these LNG facilities, you got to have people that are committing for long periods of time, decade plus periods of time. And so that's a huge commitment that also translates to balance sheets, right? You have to have balance sheets that can support these projects. And, as a dry gas producer, how many out there have the balance sheet? You could probably list them. It probably wouldn't be that hard to list them. And so it's just, it seems easy, like, oh, we're just going to build new LNG. Natural gas production is going to grow forever. That's my favorite thing, that the last 10 years, that's just been the baseline, right? That we're always going to grow gas production, but we got to build infrastructure. So it'll be curious to see. I mean, gas prices right now, I think, are surprising a lot of the bears on Twitter, spiking higher than people thought, but this could be the new normal for a while. Yeah.
I mean, 550 a couple years ago, post 2014 crash, 550 would have gotten people fucking excited, man.
Right.
And everybody's kind of sitting here watching, going, "Yeah, that's good, but not really going to act on that yet."
Right. You need you need a prolonged period of time. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, I think on the balance sheet point, like I think that's what we're gonna see, at least for the rest of this year. All these companies are gonna just be really focused on taking their free cash flow and using it to fix their balance sheets and going, well, maybe 2023 will start to, look at exploration again or ramping up capex or something. But they're enjoying the all the extra cash they can use to buy back shares or pay down debt or whatever.
Yeah. Well, doing these infrastructure projects is like taking on debt effectively. You're committing to like paying, a fee for the next 10 plus years. So it's like, are they paying down debt or are they committing to new debt? That's basically what that would be, is to commit to new debt. And I don't think people are in that mode.
Right. Yeah. No, I think this whole year we won't really see anybody want to commit to spending more money until they've had a good chance to take all this cash they'll be making this year and kind of try and fix their balance sheets as best as they can.
Well, I think that there's also, the whole, virtue investing movement that happened, and what we just saw the CEO of, Blackstone sitting there talking about how they're forcing new behaviors on people with their capital. Right. And, when they backtracked a couple of weeks ago and said, oh yeah, by the way, we actually do support, Texas fossil fuels, because they were going to get barred from the teachers' pension fund, which is like $600 million, something like that, I think. And,
right.
They tried to backpedal on all of that, and everybody kind of looked at that saying, the last 10 years, you guys have been talking about net zero and spouting off all of this bullshit. So when you have restricted capital markets for these projects, raising interest rates and inflation and everything, I see energy prices continuing to go through the roof.
It's the first time in my career. Well, I don't know. I guess early on in my career, the beginning of last decade was easier to kind of have more of a rosy picture of things. I mean, gas was pretty rocky. It's seen some ups and downs, but since then, since 2014, this is the first time that I can, with relative confidence, think that we're going to be in a higher price environment for longer. And I still am scared to even say that because of just this, scar tissue from the last 7 years. But it feels like that's where we're at.
I mean, I think everybody's scared to be optimistic because there is just so much writing on the wall of all of the stupid things that not just our own federal government, our federal government has a lot of stupid options that they've been discussing, but really it's more of like the global market structure. It just really looks like people are going to make some extremely dumb decisions from a regulatory standpoint that are going to attribute to higher energy prices worldwide, shortages worldwide, and that their solution is going to be more renewables, which is going to just continue to create a snowball effect because those renewables are not going to always be producing power. You keep shutting down all of the nuclear facilities in the world. Everybody's getting rid of coal except for China. I mean, it's a situation that for the next, 20 or so years, I think we're going to have a serious energy crisis.
Yeah, it's the macro is crazy right now. I mean, the macro is just nuts. And like, that's the thing. I don't know. I mean, the only thing I could say as I was saying that earlier about being bullish, short term, I mean, the main thing is that this like kind of recessionary forces that we're seeing here, the last time the macro looked like this, we had a major recession. Doesn't mean it's going to happen this time, though. Everybody loves to look at historical data and say, well, this happened last time, this happened, but pretty consistently that, in the times when we've started to raise rates like this, and also when times when oil prices have been high like this, we've seen recessions follow. The Ukraine-Russia situation is just a mess. I think as it drags on, I'm not sure that we're going to see it bleed into Europe. I hope not. I think Russia is just flailing right now. I don't know that I don't even know that they can invade Ukraine, let alone other countries. So I'm hopeful that it can get resolved and that it kind of, it's tragic and terrible, but hopefully just for the world and for everybody, it can get resolved. But that's the major wild card. But it does seem like there's a lot of things setting up to be kind of looking like we could be heading for a global downturn. So we'll see. That could impact energy prices. But I think the U.S. is we're like the shiniest turd right now, right? It's like Europe looks screwed. I mean, Europe looks screwed. Like China, the Middle East, like a lot of these countries get a lot of their stuff from Russia. They're not looking great. But North America, U.S., Canada, Mexico, not a bad spot. So we'll see. I don't know that that'll impact energy prices, but if you had to make a bear argument, I would say like a global recession would be the argument.
And I think that a lot of the cautionary optimism is because nobody wants to be rooting for recession or an energy crisis or anything like that. It's something that's going to affect a lot of people. And, you may be happy that your portfolio is going to be doing really well for the next couple of years, but it's still a really bad look to be, cheering on issues where, this is going to be a global problem, figuring out how do we get enough power to all of the parts of the world that need it. And we might not even be getting enough power here in the United States if we continue to overinvest in renewables and just beat down fossil fuels. We'll get to a point where we're not producing enough power here domestically without more investment in nuclear or natural gas, which now everybody's trying to phase out natural gas too.
It's already happening, right? Like look at Texas, the brownouts, California. I mean, it's the places where these things have been implemented the most. By these things, I mean renewables. It's not good. I mean, you can sit here on Twitter and there's a lot of guys that know all these like counter arguments, right? Like if you say that anywhere, renewables are at, it makes the grid more expensive. Like Craig Lawrence will come in my feed and be like, no, it's not true. I did a statistical analysis on this. Like renewables don't have any impact on energy price. And I'm like, all I know is what I'm seeing. And I'm seeing in the places where these policies have been enacted the most, like California, and now Texas is becoming one, and in Europe, there's like energy crisis, right? Now, Texas obviously has a ton of resources. Hopefully they can get the nat gas, base load that they need. But it's kind of like the proof's in the pudding with this stuff. Like we're just seeing it happen. So you can put fancy numbers in front of me, but when I'm looking out, I'm seeing those people paying the highest energy costs and having the least reliable electricity.
Well, China actually produces more renewable energy and has more renewable energy production capacity than any country in the world. And China is also building more nuclear, natural gas, and coal power plants than any other country in the world. Why do you think that they are doing that? Like, come on. Obviously, They understand that with all of the renewable capacity that they have, you can't store it anywhere, and you're going to still need your base load.
More of it.
Yeah.
You need more of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it really 1-to-1? Like some people say it's 1-to-1. I don't know if it's 1-to-1, but I've heard that it's like for every megawatt of renewables.
I think to be safe, it's close to that. I think that the overemphasis on the renewable side has resulted in a drastic shift to I think a lot of Texas's power during the day is, well over 60% renewable generation. So when you're optimizing your grid for that, you're also basically, since Texas has all these private companies generating power, you're basically, disincentivizing anybody from continuing to upgrade or build out their production facilities for natural gas or coal. You're basically saying, hey, we're only going to run your facility at, a reduced capacity every once in a while. Well, why is
Right.
anybody going to go ahead and invest the money to continue to do the maintenance and upgrades on these facilities that would be necessary if they were being fully utilized? You're in a situation that the only people who are getting, the subsidies and tax breaks and everything are on the renewable side. And so, of course, you're going to have companies that are going to come and overbuild on those
Right.
projects. And if we're still underbuilding on the base load, you're going to have situations like what happened last year. And again, nobody wants that to happen. There are a ton of different factors that went into everything that happened last year. I do think it is entirely possible for it to happen again, though.
Right.
I mean, the
Yeah,
cost to
it's
winterize all of those facilities is prohibitively expensive when it's, once a decade that you actually have a freeze like that.
right. Well, I mean, like, there's a reason why people use coal for a long, long time to generate electricity is because you can store a ton of energy at the site, right? Now we're relying on not just, I mean, I'll even pick on natural gas. Like, you have to dispatch, it has to be there, right? Like, if it freezes and you can't get it from the wells to the power plant, and in places like Texas, it's probably the investment to make those, the winterizing these things. It's like, it's typically this doesn't happen. So that's just a lot of extra money versus in other places where it's cold all the time, like Canada. I'm sure that's just standard, right? But,
Yeah.
Whenever you get rid of a really fantastic source of energy, which is coal, and people want to hate on it, but it's a great source of energy. You can store a bunch of it right there. It's perfect for those types of situations. You can just put it in the furnace and use it, and it can be like the hero in those types of situations. And we've gotten rid of all of it, or most of it, right? And then you've got gas and you've got renewables. The renewables are, they pretty much crap the bed most times when these storms happen. Sometimes they can bail it out, but if there's a big storm, typically the sun's not shining, and then the wind may be blowing. Sometimes the wind blows too hard. Sometimes it freezes. I mean, there's a lot of issues. And then nat gas, same thing. So it's like when we start to like virtue signal our way into these decisions, and let's just face it, that's what it is when you're doing renewables on the grid. It's a lot of feel good stuff. I'm not saying there's no merit at all to trying to look at lesser carbon energy sources. I think that no one wants pollution, right? Like, you can reduce pollution, that's a good thing, but in theory, but there's just consequences to getting rid of these really reliable energy, methods that we've used forever. There's a reason why we're using them, because they work really good.
Well, the state of Texas actually asked for an exemption on the, it's not the EPA, it's FERC, has a stipulation about the proportion of available renewable capacity power generation for your state versus what you're utilizing. And so basically, if you cross the threshold of renewable capacity generation to fossil fuels, you pay a higher rate. And so before that storm last year, Governor Abbott sent a letter asking for a temporary exemption so that we could have our coal and natural gas power plants running at full capacity throughout this storm, because what you were just talking about, where in that situation, once the grid started going offline, they were prioritizing populated areas to keep power generation going. Well, when you started shutting off the, large portions of our grid where you don't have a whole bunch of people living, turns out that a lot of those electric meters were on pump jacks, and they were on gathering facilities and compressor stations and things like that,
Right.
that are necessary for the feedstock for these natural gas plants to continue to operate. So hypothetically, if we had had everything running at full bore, if we had gotten that exemption, hypothetically, we may have not had the same devastating effects with the blackouts statewide, because the coal and natural gas plants would have continued to function. So we would not have been shutting off parts of the grid that were part of, nobody really even knew what parts of the grid generate power and how
Right.
integrated it is from the pump jack to the compressor station to the natural gas facility. You might cross through 3 different electric co-ops to get from point A to point B. And when you're calling every single one of those co-ops and saying you got to shed 80% of your load right now, they're going to shut off the areas that aren't populated. So when that exemption that Texas requested got denied, the administration here in Texas sat there and looked at this saying, okay, so if we go ahead and do this, everybody in Texas is going to have, a 30% increase in their electric bill or more. I mean, you could put a lot of people into a situation where they literally are not able to pay their electric bill. And if the storm was not as bad as people were thinking it could be, because again, the meteorologists of the world, they still haven't figured this out. So it was like, worst case scenario, we run all these power plants at full capacity. Everybody across the state is paying, a huge tax to the federal government as a result. And we possibly are going to bankrupt citizens of our state. Well, what if it's not that bad? And we do this anyways, and we still have these increased energy costs. Well, that's certainly not a good option either. So they decided to, try to weather the storm, so to speak. And that was a terrible decision. But they were put between a rock and a hard place by the federal government.
That's crazy. I had not heard that. No, that's nuts. Guys, thanks for having me on. I got to run here in a minute, but I appreciate it. I wish that I could have called in before, but I'll try to make it again. I'm usually Friday afternoons are always tough for me. Yeah. But I was sitting here and I was sitting here in the office doing a few things, and I saw it come on, and I was like, yes, I'm finally free and hop on.
Hey, man.
It's been fun.
Glad to have you finally join. You're welcome anytime.
Yeah, definitely. All right, cool. Talk soon. See you guys.
Take it easy.
I don't know what to talk about now. I mean, we're just pretty slow Friday today, I guess.
Well, we had Alberta on here earlier.
Trudeau, the Mounties probably swooped in their vans and arrested him finally.
I don't think Mounties show up in vans.
On Mooseback?
Yeah, exactly.
Moose-drawn sleighs?
I don't know. I mean, again, we're left with a situation where we've just got more problems than solutions. I don't know that there really is a way that you could fix the impending energy crisis, even if people quit being just completely retarded with energy policy.
Yeah, because you're going to have to make a bunch of capital investments.
And so it's not just energy policy. It's, the BlackRocks of the world and everybody else who seems to think, well, we're going to, weaponize our capital investments and everything. And I don't know if there's, a way around that, but nobody's figured it out yet. You know, I mean, maybe we just start fucking crowdfunding, you know, infrastructure build outs.
Yeah.
Start a GoFundMe for a new LNG terminal, you know.
I mean, wild times.
We've got Scott keeps chiming in on the comments, but he hasn't joined in yet.
He didn't want to hang out this week.
Well, I talked to him earlier. I think he was planning on trying to call in. And yeah, I guess Alberta may have gone to get a bag of milk. You might be right, Scott. I mean, I wish that we had Bird on here. I need to just text him and tell him he needs to start looking into the export capacity of these LNG terminals, because
I think they're pretty dang full, I would imagine.
Yeah, we don't have that many of them. So
right.
it can't take too long. Maybe I'll just look into it next week to see, you know, what is the max capacity of how much we could potentially export versus what we're currently doing. Because again, I have no idea. I never really thought we would be in this position of needing to send more LNG because Russia decided to be so fucking retarded.
And the Europeans have also decided to be.
Yeah, but Trump kind of told us about that, and everybody was like, whatever, that dude's just an idiot. He's just talking shit to everybody on Twitter.
No, I know, but that's the thing.
It's the same shit with Alex Jones. Everybody was like, that dude is smoking crack. He is totally lying about all of this shit, conspiracy theories and everything. And turns out a lot of the stuff that he was talking about was actually true.
Right. But, you know, it's just like what the headline came out at the beginning of the Russia-Ukraine thing where Germany was like, we're still going to mothball a bunch of these nuclear reactors, even though we're staring down the barrel of an impending energy crunch.
Yeah. Oh, Jordan's not going to make it. There you go, Scott.
Come join us for the last 15 minutes.
Yeah, we're not going to stay on too late today, but we'd be happy to visit with you for a couple minutes. I'm going to grab another beer. You need another beer?
I'm good. So what you were saying earlier is I shouldn't brag when my retirement account triples in value because I'm so long oil and gas.
Dude, I just feel like you understand what I mean, right?
No, I do.
I mean, and this is one of those situations where everybody would say, "Oh, well, you know, it's the prevailing narrative about the greedy, you know, fossil fuels people and corporate greed and all of those taglines and everything." But I just feel like it's kicking somebody when they're down, and I don't know that it's really worth it.
No, I agree with you. I just,
you know, and that whole narrative about you're welcome for the shirt on your back, or, you know, you're welcome that you survived the winter, you know, thank fossil fuels. All of that stuff played out 20 years ago, and everybody got sick of that. And so I think like revisiting that sentiment is just asking for, you know, further backlash down the line.
Right. But at the same time, you know, I think
fuck them all.
Well, right. They're just like, there has to be a little bit of I told you so allowed, because I don't think anybody's going to learn if we just try and like.
I don't think they care. That's the problem. I don't
No,
think they care.
I agree. Yeah, because it goes back to the whole concept of none of the decision makers actually have any skin in the game or face any consequences from any of this stuff.
Well, they get to front run all of their stupid announcements. So
right, so it's like Nancy Pelosi doesn't have to deal or suffer or anything from all the power issues in California, but it's like, how do you communicate to the average Joe that oil and gas is on their side while also trying to tell Nancy Pelosi, I told you so.
You show them an ad with some stock footage of coffee being made, and you tell them it's powered by Colorado natural gas, baby.
Yeah, I guess so. But
I don't think that's the way. But whatever.
If we could banning congressmen from trading stocks would be a good start.
I mean, I think it's a great idea. I don't think it's going to actually help anything, really. Oh, what's up, Scott?
I didn't hear the boop.
Yeah. How you
Hey,
been,
how's
man?
it going?
Pretty good. What are you up to?
I'm actually house sitting for a friend who has 4 dogs, and he's like, "Can you watch them, Mom?" He went to Portland, and he's
never coming back, dude. He's gonna get.
He's got a house and 4 dogs.
Yeah. Congratulations, man! Your first home.
Yeah, it's not mine, but he was telling me how he was walking down the street, and people would cross over and walk on the other side of the street to get away from him because he wasn't wearing a mask outside.
Like he's there now, and this is still happening.
Yes, like he's
Hey,
there for the weekend.
But everybody in Portland keeps talking about how Portland is beautiful, and like the mainstream media has made all of this big deal out of nothing, and none of the city got burned to the ground, and all of the people are normal and happy and cheerful.
There's not just blocks of the city that are controlled by anarchist leftist groups.
God.
Autonomous zones everywhere.
All of it's bullshit.
Apparently. I mean, just don't listen to Fox News. I just can't get over how hilarious it is to me that one clip, and you were talking about it, how Trump was telling the Germans not to be dependent on the Russians, and then the Germans all start laughing.
Yeah.
I mean, gosh, if Trump was still on Twitter, he should be posting that every day and tagging all the Germans that were laughing at him.
I mean, honestly, at this point, I think he should be like sending them little like cards. Told you so.
Or just doing his press releases that he does from Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, and all it is told you so.
Yeah, I can't stand some of the European smugness. Like, I remember when I was in grad school, we had like this lecturer come from Italy, and we went to a bar afterwards to chat with him, and he's going on and on. He's like, "Yeah, Americans, they just like to drink to get drunk." And at the time, I was pretty polite, but like if someone like that went off on that about like Americans are trashy like that, I'd be like, "Do you speak German? Or do you speak?" You can thank a beer drinking American. That you don't.
With mud on his boots.
Right.
Which his jeans or his coveralls are tucked into those boots. It was pretty funny. It was probably like 2012, and I had a buddy of mine who worked for Halliburton and was just like a field hand at the time. And we were all in New Orleans for New Year's, and he got into an argument with some random, hippie fuck at this bar. My buddy said something about working for Halliburton. This hippie guy said, "You're destroying the planet." My buddy said, "Real energy comes from the ground." This guy said, again, like, "You're killing, our planet and poisoning our water and, killing babies and all this shit." So they ended up getting into a fight, and the hippie got dragged out of the bar when the cops showed up. The hippie got dragged out of the bar, after my buddy said, well, yeah, this guy thinks that, I work for Halliburton and I'm, destroying the planet or whatever. And the cops looked at this hippie guy and were like, get the fuck out of here, dude. Like, you're not providing any value to society by getting in a fight and losing over climate change and bullshit like that. So, I mean, we do have that smugness to an extent here. I think that the PR campaign on and fossil fuels and everything has been far more effective in Europe because their politicians got on that bandwagon a long time ago. I mean, they were all paid off. This was all an orchestrated effort. God damn it. I feel like Jay saying this, but this is all orchestrated by OPEC, to start all of these green revolutions and all of that bullshit. They literally had meetings about doing all of this years ago. Supplanting, subliminal messaging in Western society about how fossil fuels are bad so that OPEC would become, the, once again, premier energy source for the world. And it's so far kind of worked out for them.
Right. Well, I mean, we need to switch to renewables someday, but you got to do it intelligently.
Yeah, I don't know that anybody that's talking about renewables has any brain cells left. They've been, huffing the hopium so hard for a decade now.
What? Let's talk about the definition of renewable.
Let's talk about how WTX keeps sending me explicit images.
Would you like to talk about that real quick, intern?
Do you want to see this?
No,
Let's
I don't want to see it. Hey, WTX, will you tell him? Will you tell him how that happened? Stop.
All right. So
I've been laughing about this all fucking day, dude.
The stickers came in. I don't know if I sent y'all a picture or not, but the stickers came in for the April 1st meetup. And so I texted Gates and I was like, "Hey, how do I go about paying for these?" And he was like, "You can Venmo me, or you can do this, or you could just send full frontal nudity to the intern." And I was like,
There we go.
I'd choose nudity. And
So
I'll still pay.
You sent nudity?
It's very graphic images.
I'll text them to you, Scott.
I keep asking for your address, and I haven't gotten it. I'm about giving up.
We'll take care of all this right now.
Okay, no, please. I don't even.
So the intern in a group message dropped a screenshot, or at first you just said WTX just sent me some explicit images.
No. I thought he just like Boomer accidentally sent me a picture that was intended for somebody else. And I was like, oh, WTX just sent me a picture of his pubes. I'm pretty sure it was just like beard hair or something.
No, it's I googled pubic hair. I think I googled penis pubic hair pictures. And,
You try to search for the helmet in the bush?
no, I haven't. That would have been a good one.
WTX needs to go to a doctor though, probably.
I cut myself shaving. Did you see that?
I think you got more problems than cut yourself shaving.
Yeah, but I've been texting with him all day, just laughing about this, and he said, "I'm gonna blow up intern's phone during the stand down."
Wow, see now the scheme has been revealed.
What are you sipping on over there at WTX?
A Bloody Mary.
Oh,
I
nice.
don't have any A1, so I've had to make it up with Tabasco and vodka.
Wait, you use A1 in a Bloody Mary?
Yes, it's
Really?
spectacular.
So like I'm like a Worcestershire guy. I
Mhm.
mean, I guess Worcestershire A1 if
Let's
you're
splash
using
both.
them if you're using them in different proportions could achieve kind of a similar effect.
Yeah, I use them both. I'll put a splash of Worcestershire and then a pretty liberal pour of A1.
Okay, so
Speaking of A1, it's my wife's birthday tomorrow, so we're cooking filet mignon tomorrow, and went over to Tall City, or she went over to Tall City Meat and picked some up in Midland today, which
Nice.
are excellent steaks, excellent looking steaks. So
yeah,
I'm
it's a
excited for my dad to slather them with A1 tomorrow evening.
Midland Meat's a primo spot.
And it's not that expensive. Like it's obviously higher than going to fucking United or
Yeah.
HEB and just getting whatever's in the cooler, right?
But I mean, if I remember right, that's the what is it? The Schauerbauer Ranch family. That's like their beef that they're.
Yeah, Midland Meat is. Yep.
So
Yeah.
it's good, supporting a local West Texas business.
Actually, I think she got these from Tall City Butchery or something like that.
No,
Wait, there's a Tall City Brewery. I've had
Tall City, Midland, Texas.
I've had some beers from there. Pretty sure, right? Isn't that a thing?
Mhm.
They have like
Tall City Brewery.
they have something called like the like Pump Jack Pilsner or some shit like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I got one of those in the house. They're not that great. They're all right, right? They're local beers are fun to drink, but
I would agree with that. All right is a fair grade.
the fucking okayest beer ever.
It's cool.
You
It's
can
cool
meet-
building. They got a cool little, place you can go hang out.
Is
I
that the
haven't-
one? Is that the one that's in Odessa over by Sewell Ford?
No, they're in. At least last I knew, they were in Midland still. They got the whole brewery, and then you can just hang out at the brewery. Newer, it's a newer. They built their own building and stuff.
Yeah. First time I did that was in. I was like 21, 22 years old. I had, just a dumb kid, and I had no idea that like in places of civilization, like places that actually had civilization, that like you could drink beer at a brewery. And because I'd been like to Shiner before, and like when I was a kid, and like you can't. Well, I'm sure somebody drinks there, but like not as an 11-year-old.
Maybe in Louisiana.
Yeah, no doubt. We go up to a wedding up there, and we leave we literally leave Coolidge, Kansas, the place where cousin Eddie lives in National Lampoon's Vacation. We literally leave there and drive to Kansas City to a wedding, and that was the first spot we hit. Was like, all right, right by the hotel, there's a brewery. They said they have food. Let's go check them out. Let's go get drunk. And that was that switched me from my heavy Keystone Light drinking days to, hey, the mood and the atmosphere and like people it's not just a smoky fucking beer joint, right? It's a cool place to go.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, if you want to get drunk in a brewery, the Sipes Chili Cook-Off is coming up April 9th. I know you wouldn't miss it.
April 9th.
Maybe you
You
can get
actually
a ride
did
back
say
with
that
Kermit
you were
to
going to be going through Houston on April 9th, WTX. You said that, and you do love yourself some chili, right?
Yeah, I don't have anything on the schedule, but wasn't that contingent on Kermit? If
Yes, he was gonna pick you up, and he was gonna drive you to the Sipes Chili Cook-Off, and then he was gonna drive you back,
Okay.
right?
Well, I wanted Kermit to take me to Midland for your April 1st meetup.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Kermit's just running the Houston to Midland shuttle these days. He honestly ought to just start, advertising that service and just,
side.
Yeah.
You got to register as an Uber driver, and then you can hop in his truck, and he will Uber you from Houston to Midland.
He needs to get
$1,000 Uber ride.
one of those stretch Hummers with a big like cases of Shiner in the back, of course.
Yeah, except who would drive it?
We'll get Elon's self-driving thing
for the Hummer limo.
Yeah.
That stops every 30 miles to refuel itself.
Yeah. It's my air conditioner went out in this building last year, and this is the first warm day that we've had in a while. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to be putting an air conditioner in this place tomorrow.
I mean, that explains why you're drinking an iced beverage.
Somebody else just trying to get on?
Yeah, that was Tejano Brown, but his screen was entirely black, so he may be on a location with no service, which happens quite frequently.
I got you.
Hey, Scott, who was it that you were talking about? Craig's in La La Land? Who was it that Max was talking about?
Have you not seen that guy?
Yeah, Craig Lawrence.
Oh, okay. Now that
Big renewable guy, bald head.
Yeah. Now that kind of
Dude.
Yeah, and if you call him out, he'll just like ignore you. Because I remember I was talking, kind of not talking shit, just calling him out because he's like, I hate it when people manipulate data. And he was talking about how, you know, solar is a great source of energy. And someone pointed out, well, look how it just goes up and down. He's like, well, if you look at electricity demand, it goes up and down. Yeah, in the summer, like during the day when you need it. And someone else posted, well, if you look at total energy, it doesn't have that. It doesn't fluctuate because in the winter we heat with gas, right? Well, if you get rid of fossil fuels, your pretty little correlation goes away. In the summer, when solar works the best, yeah, it can take away extra demand. But if you're going to get rid of natural gas and stuff in buildings, you're going to have that your fluctuation big in the summer is going to start to be, you know, kind of solid demand. And he's just kind of taking advantage of the fact that we use electricity for cooling and fossil fuels for heating to make the point that the unreliability of solar actually meets peak demand. If you get what I'm saying? So it's just to me, I felt like, oh, that was kind of disingenuous, and you know, he's just trying to sell something.
It
Everyone's
never
trying to
lines
sell
up exactly like that, though.
Right. So, a lot of these things is like someone can show you a graph, and it's like, oh yeah, that it does seem reasonable, but then when you go dig down deeper into the data, it's like, whoa, I'm not so sure this is actually what you think it is. I think he probably has. I'm not blocked, but he might have muted me.
He pops up every once in a while, kind of chirping anti-oil and gas stuff. And then,
yeah, I think some of these guys like Energy Credit One, I think they get off on pissing off.
Oh yeah, no, it's all that attention. They love the attention.
It's like. Just like how I'll mess with people and say new metal sucks, even though it really does.
I don't even know what new metal is.
I think that's a very niche corner of Twitter.
Yeah, well, like Kermit and probably Tejano Brown knows what I'm talking about, but I'll fuck with Kermit about it.
Tejano Brown's more into the rap game, bro.
Well,
Are we not talking about metallurgy right now?
What?
Are we not talking about metallurgy?
No.
We've got a couple of experts on EFT these days.
Alloys and
New metal is a bunch of white kids in the 90s trying to pretend we're in the rap game. Like Limp Bizkit.
In that one fucking crazy town, that butterfly song or whatever.
No.
Yes, you want to know.
You're going to be late for your babysitting or whatever.
what was
Hey.
the Gorillas or something like that? Was that new metal?
No, they're a little bit later. I would call them like alternative. Now, new metal is like a bunch of white guys pretending they rap, but they still kind of play a little bit of metal.
Would you consider 311 new metal?
Say it again?
Would you consider 311 new metal?
No. Or who else was it? Incubus. I was saying, oh, new metal sucks, and someone's like, oh, I love Incubus. Well, I wouldn't consider
Yeah, they're more like alt rock.
Hey, it's the fucking rookie from that movie. Look, it's my operator. Hey, y'all want an autograph? I can get it for y'all.
How about you have him autograph the blue pancakes that WTX has been sending pictures of to the intern on the first at the bar?
Mm.
Oh shit! Is the blue pancakes anything like the blue waffle?
Yeah, that's what he meant. Blue waffle.
Oh, that's fucking terrible, dude.
Yeah, one of those was a bunch of warts, right? Thanks.
No, it's like I think it's like really really bad like gonorrhea or something.
Thank God we have antibiotics.
Does Bitcoin fix that?
I don't know, but I think we've kind of taken a turn for the worse here, guys. I kind of feel like we're going to have to shut things down pretty soon.
Just going to continue to deteriorate?
Yeah.
We're going to get a gab where we're not censored.
Yeah.
TV, did you get a pin drop for your location or your turn-by-turn directions?
Turn by turn is the only way to go.
I hope they used Apple Maps. I know that's your favorite.
Oh my God.
Was there folks?
Apple Maps is the worst, and I have an iPhone.
It doesn't work. And what annoys me the most is I was working with somebody and she sent me the pin drop and I went to the wrong place and was like, this isn't right. And then the next person went to the same wrong place and told
It
her
was
it is
Petra,
right.
wasn't it?
No, I don't work with
WTX just send me that fucking picture. Terrible. So I'm heading to work right now. About to get onto a 2-well pad, and I am about to pass a gas plant, and it's pretty massive.
That's where renewable energy comes from, right?
The signal's really shitty, unfortunately.
Renewable natty.
Well, guys,
But yeah,
I appreciate y'all hopping on. I think we're gonna wrap things up here and shut it down a little bit early. Wait,
All right.
later, guys.
we're getting live footage of this gas plant from TB.
Y'all see it?
Yeah. Where you at?
Over here, north of 1788. So,
Nice.
can't say any names, but
Sweet.
this is the area that I'm at.
Well, everybody, y'all have a great weekend, and we will catch you again next week.
Later.
Sounds good.